hey, millennials, hey, Gen Z, like there's a way to create your own path. Read my book. I made my own path.
Move over, baby boomers. It's time for Gen XYZ. It's time to stop waiting on the world to change. It's time to be the change. It's time to stop thinking about how your life can be better. It's time to start taking action, massive action to improve your life. Join Zach Winter and Mark Adair Rios every week as we learn how others had the grit, determination, and conviction to 10x their lives, and as we explore ways that can help you 10x your life. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 10x for Gen XYZ podcast. I'm Mark Adair Rios.
And I'm Zach Winter.
And today we're joined by a truly remarkable guest, someone who's buzzing with enthusiasm and wisdom. Give a warm welcome to the incredible Ernesto Mandowski. Ernesto's life is all about helping people build what he calls cash flow engines, inspired by the magic of bees and their cross-pollination abilities. Now, once upon a time, Ernesto dreamt of owning 6 restaurants, and he gathered valuable lessons from all these mentors and guys that he met in nightclubs and cruise companies, hotels, and a whole bunch of places. But after becoming a restaurant systems engineer, Ernesto realized his true passion lay elsewhere. So enter Ernesto's first book, New Bee, B-E-E, where he discovered the striking similarities between people and bees. And he's now the founder of Cross-Pollination Design Advisors, helping folks share their unique honey, their special gifts with the world. So get ready for an unbelievably exciting conversation with Ernesto Mandowski, the honey sharing champion. Let's dive in. Hey, Ernesto, how you doing, man?
I love that bio. Thank you.
You got it. All right. Well, thanks for joining, man. There's a lot of stuff that in your bio seems very interesting. So what I'd love to do is let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about, your journey trying to, owning your 6 restaurants and how you got up to how you kind of came about with, that number of restaurants that you wanted to run and what changed.
As cliche as I'd want to say, oh, there's 6 sides to a hexagon and the hexagon is honey. And I wish it was that coincidental. No, I actually met a guy when I was 18 years old, and he owned 6 restaurants. And I said, I want to be like that guy.
What kind of restaurants?
He was from Paris, and he owned Mediterranean restaurants, Italian restaurants. I honestly only met the man one time in my life. Like he came to a dinner party at my parents' house, and I was like, I want to be like this guy, and then the rest is history. I was just very focused on that goal.
Interesting.
What city were you living in at the time?
In Miami.
Nice.
Okay. So they're kind of known as a foodie location, right? Lots of good restaurants.
Yes. And it was nowhere near as trendy as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
By any means.
Right. Did you did you ever kind of visit those restaurants as you were kind of coming up to get more ideas? Did you go along the path of maybe, becoming a chef, or, I guess in modern day parlance, everybody's kind of a foodie kind of influencer type of thing. Did you go down any of those routes, or?
Well, I went to college, and I wanted to study systems engineering. And the first 3 years I kept talking about restaurants, but I actually didn't do anything with restaurants.
Right.
So in my 4th year, I said, I guess I got to work in a restaurant if I want to get closer to this. And I was a busboy for 3 weeks. At the same time, yeah. At the same time that I took the job, I also started a food business in school. I was showing up to late night at the fraternity house that I was in with a George Foreman grill, and I was making these panini pressed ice cream donut sandwiches that were hot and cold at the same time. And
those sound delicious.
Yeah,
especially when you're late at night in the fraternity house.
Yeah, a lot funner than bussing tables.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
Go back and tell me about what system engineering is. It sounds like you can apply that to different business models, including restaurants.
Yeah. So traditionally, systems engineering used to be called industrial engineering.
Yeah.
And they were the people who would show up in the manufacturing plant, and they would say, okay, like there are the raw materials. That's where you receive them. That's where you go through machine A, machine B, machine C, and they go out the door as a finished product. The industrial engineer would look at that process and see like what is the bottleneck, what could be improved along the way, and make changes to either make it faster, make it with higher quality, make it cheaper, increase performance. And I thought that was a really cool, fancy way of connecting the dots.
Mhm.
So I said,
Yeah.
there must be a way to apply that in restaurants. And that was the question that I kind of kept top of mind while I was in college.
Is that what kind of like franchises like McDonald's do? They set up like systems in place to make it consistent, streamline the process, get efficiencies in place.
It's kind of like a manufacturing line. You're talking about,
Yeah.
like, here's where the bun, here's where this comes through, here's 1, 2, 3, and really breaking it down.
Yeah, I mean, when a company makes a promise, they need a way to measure the effectiveness of the ability of the transference of that promise. Is the customer satisfied? Is the
Right.
NPS satisfied? Are we doing it at a profitability level that is healthy for our business? Any franchise is a system. And so I would later on discover that, what I was learning was actually applicable to any industry.
Mhm.
Right. Right. And did you go work for did you go work with a cruise company? Did you go on cruises?
Yeah, I was working at Deloitte, and Deloitte is a tech consulting company.
Yeah.
And I started in government work, but after a year, I got an opportunity to go be with a cruise line, and we were doing casino technology.
Interesting.
So we actually did get to go on a cruise and see how the inner workings of the casino operated.
Interesting. I was just reading an article the other day about I don't know if he was BSing, but this guy said he stopped in and at a smaller casino, maybe it was out in like Pahrump or something like that, but he was driving through, he stopped by and he won the jackpot. And they came in and they said that it was a glitch. It was this whole hoopla, the whole thing was going.
Oh my God.
The casino managers, it was like $1 million or some crazy jackpot. And he was kind of lackadaisical about it. They said, well, no, this was a glitch. Sorry, you didn't win, and sent him on his way, and he left. And then as he was driving away, he was thinking about it. And then he had like all these regrets. He got home and then he called them up and he's like, hey, I was just there. And they're like, yeah, sorry, nothing we can do, man. You left. And so he went to the press and, started talking.
Made a whole thing. Yeah, that's
totally
crazy. That's
I wonder, and I wonder with this whole digital, what's going on with, if that happens a lot right now, or if there's a lot of stories about, I always believe, I mean, I guess there's a way to game even the manual machines, right? But I feel like with the digital ones, there's even more of a possibility to tilt things towards the house, right? On those machines.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, even in the non-digital ones, like I heard those crane games.
Yeah.
Like those things are programmed to not have enough tensile strength. Like 1 out of every 100 tries, which was like mind blowing. It's like, wow. These arcades,
they tuned it down. They have a program that tunes it down every 7, and then maybe the 8th one
and then like on the 8th one, it has to be perfectly aligned with the tool or with whatever, the ball or the $100 stack or whatever the toy is. It's crazy.
So did you guys get into any of that with your casino operations on the cruise ship? Listen, on the cruise ship, the house always wins, right?
The house wins on a ship, off a ship. The house is always winning. The Matrix is always winning. But yeah, we got in. We learned like the back end of their infrastructure and we put together like a proposal for how all the pieces come together. And
Nice.
crazy. I mean, these world-class cruise companies or brands, they're just as disconnected and discombobulated on the back end.
Interesting.
You would never realize it, but everyone's on their spreadsheets, and
Yeah.
which blows my mind.
Is that something that when you came out of Deloitte, was that something that was that one of the things that kind of was a catalyst for you to kind of break into? I mean, this, your book Newbie and kind of what you've gone into, it feels like you had kind of there's an artistic kind of spin on a lot of this, right? The connections you're making. And so, learning that you were with a real heavy kind of numbers firm like Deloitte, I wonder if, did you have a Jerry Maguire moment with them? Like, this is.
Well, my moment was, it was so many things happening at the same time. While I was at Deloitte, I went to culinary school and I was writing a business plan for a bread bakery that I was starting or had started in my apartment. And it was so fun. It was so fun to do that. And I was at school, I was telling everyone like, hey, I'm a systems engineer. And I would ask, how can I get into the industry? And they all told me, be a server. And I'm like, no, in college, I was a busboy. I asked my questions about technology and no one gave a shit. No, sorry. No one cared. And I'm not going to be a server because that's your advice. There has to be another way. And the course finished and nothing happened. And in this very weird, like the universe is in its powerful, mysterious ways, like an opportunity showed up. To one of these instructors came back to me and said, hey, we actually need someone to help us. We're opening up 10 different businesses and we need some help. So it was kind of like,
what kind of businesses?
This was a man who was very successful in Denmark. He had created lots of brands and concepts and cafeterias, and he came to New York and he was starting like this whole Danish frenzy in New York. Like there were lots of Danish restaurants popping up and he was bringing his concepts and he was attracting a lot of attention. We were starting a food hall in Grand Central Station called the Great Northern Food Hall. And there was a fine dining restaurant and there was a commissary, like a culinary school and a coffee commissary and an import-export bit. There were so many things happening.
Wow.
And extremely well capitalized.
Yeah, he had some capital. Our investor wanted to make a splash in New York and it didn't go as well. It is not operating.
How long did it last?
It lasted about 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Did it have that kind of Northern Europe kind of Scandinavian sensibility where, everything's stripped down, or was it more, romantic, for lack of a term?
It was very minimalist. The decor, the plateware, the ambiance was very Danish. I loved it. It was really awesome. It was really cool in that I got to experience that. It was really not so cool that I was kind of like an island. Like I was trying to do this systems engineering thing with restaurants and I was on an island. My boss didn't understand exactly what I was doing. The CFO, no one really taught me. No one could teach me and I had to teach myself.
Were you brought in to do systems engineering, or what was your stated role when you
my title? I was promised that we would have an ERP, and for the listeners who don't know what that means an enterprise resource planning tool, which is usually the accounting tool that's connected to an operations tool, usually connected to like inventory or sales, scheduling. So I was told that I would be the person who was consistently analyzing the tool to see where in the business, which menu items were selling, which inventory was being wasted the most, where was there inefficiencies in the schedule, And that really lit me up, because I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's really like the analysis that I was studying.
Right.
And
And when I arrived,
did you
when I arrived,
do that at Deloitte? Were you doing some of that kind of work?
not at all.
Not at all.
No,
But you
not
had
at all.
studied it in school.
I'd studied conceptually, and when I arrived, none of the systems were set up.
Hmm.
I was the one who got to set it up.
Interesting. Did it take
When
you a
you
little
say-
while, like, kind of hit that learning curve just to figure out the lay of the land and or did you hit the ground running and kind of knew exactly what you wanted to do?
I mean, I knew what I was supposed to be doing. Did it mean
Are you having to write software, or are these Excel spreadsheets, or are there like out of the can programs that you can buy? How does all that work?
No, there's programs that you could buy. There are plenty of programs that you could buy. Just trying to align 10 different businesses across 5 different programs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Across a consistently changing menu made it a challenge.
Yeah.
But it was a really good learning opportunity.
Did you feel like you were successful kind of coming out of that by the time? Did you stay the whole time over the 4 or 5 years it was running?
No, I did not. After the first year, I realized I didn't want any other. I knew that the industry was going in that direction with technology and integration and systems. And so I said, I'm going to write a book for the next analyst. And that book was called Newbie Foodie at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And after about a year, another company had approached the restaurant group saying, hey, we want to put our new state-of-the-art point of sale into one of your businesses. When this company was pitching me on all who they were working with and how like they were building the dream software, the tool that was connecting everything. And I was kind of swooned over and basically said, I want to join this company, and left the restaurant and joined this point of sale company. They were working with the top restaurants in New York.
Interesting.
So
What's the point? Gosh, man, your I guess your background and what you do, I'm sure there's a lot of other people that kind of do something similar, but it seems like what's your entry point into this whole thing? Because the way I see it, you usually have an investor and then you have like the chef, right? But the chef is like a visionary. Is there kind of a COO type where you are able to plug what you're doing, this on the ground stuff into? Or is it a general manager of all 5 of the restaurants or one restaurant? Like where do you plug in at that? Do you plug in actually with the chef? Because I can see chefs being like, I don't understand anything. What are you talking about, man? I just want, I want to cook some stuff. Like where does it?
So I was because we were 10 groups, 10 business units, if you may, I was kind of sitting in, there was a management company that was overseeing everything.
Right.
And in this management company, you had IT, which was the shared service. You had HR, which was the shared service. You had finance, which was the shared service.
Right. Okay.
And then you had the COO, who was just kind of overseeing everything.
Right.
And where I sat, because it was mom and pop, it was a new company. I didn't have a lane. I was touching everyone. I was setting up the finance system that touched operations, that impacted IT. Like it was all connected. And so I was kind of like this Swiss Army knife bouncing around all these different divisions, which was cool, but also challenging in that I didn't have like a person who would teach me. I kind of had to like extract a little bit from all these different areas.
Right. So if you were to pitch the group today, you would look for the COO. That would be the person that's the door you'd go knocking on, or maybe the general manager of a particular restaurant who could push you up to push you up to the COO maybe.
I would go directly to the COO or the CFO, because it's really like about analysis.
Yeah.
Financial planning and analysis is like a huge part of any organization.
Yeah.
Hey, Ernesto, did you say while all this was going on during the year there, you were also starting a bread or a bakery business out of your place?
Yeah, are you familiar with challah bread?
No.
Challah bread is like a
Oh, challah.
brioche.
Yeah.
Challah, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So I had started baking challah bread after I gained like 10 pounds doing the donut thing, the late night donut thing. I learned how to bake some challah bread,
Nice.
but like really dope challah, like Oreos and olives and
Wow.
empanada stuffed and caramelized onions, like very crazy flavors.
Mhm.
And so when part of my boss's pitch to me when he said, "Hey, come work at the restaurants," was we have a bakery, come and like bake and have fun and just like enjoy it. So I like sunset. I mean, I put the challah thing on pause,
Okay.
but kept going.
Yeah. So you were there for a year, and then you went on the tech side, and you were working on some software for restaurants.
Excuse me. Yeah, I was there. I was doing kind of the same thing with restaurants, where I was like integrating all of the different systems that we were using, because when investors want to understand what's happening in the business, you got to pull a report. And when you pull the report, if you have a bad system, then you're not going to have data with integrity.
Yeah. Was this second company, was it a software development company, or was it a restaurant company
No,
that software?
no, it was a software development company.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a kind of, there's a SaaS for everything, right? I mean, everything's kind of broken out now, but there's also large scale kind of niche products. We have them in commercial real estate.
Sure.
That do a lot of that, but it's kind of the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, like on our side, on the investor relations side, there's a lot of groups kind of coming in, seeing people kind of raise private capital and trying to, come after and build systems around how do you systematize, raising private capital from retail investors, through syndications and funds. It's true. It's like one size doesn't fit all. In our case, we have, you can approach a capital raise, 500 ways to Sunday, right? And so not one software fits every single model. So you have to have somebody who knows the software, but also knows how to raise capital.
The business.
Putting it all together. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I can imagine it's the same thing for kind of restaurants as well. Like you can't, unless you just go uber niche, right? And you just stay right in that lane because you can just continue to sell, but I don't know if you can grow from there.
No, yeah, it's well, that's the whole thing with like business analysts today. Like a business analyst or like a technology analyst, it's usually the person who like plays the mediator between the divisions, because the tech people don't know how to communicate and the business people don't understand how technology works. So you have someone who's kind of in the middle.
Interesting. So how did you get out? Now, how did you get out of kind of being a restaurant systems engineer and getting into your actual book? And was there a big shift? Did you just say, I'm just going to sit and take the next year to write my book? Or was it, slowly moving into that? How did it work for you?
So I was working at that point of sale company, and I decided, I rebranded the book into the bees and realized that we're all just like bees. And I said, this is the TED Talk. This is the talk. I'm going to give it across the country. I'm going to move to Miami, buy a van, tour the country. And you can imagine what my mom said to me when I said that.
How old are you at this point?
I'm 27.
Okay.
At this point. And
so you had written the book, but you rebranded it and kind of
it was like the third time I was writing the book. I had kept writing and rewriting and editing, and it was my last week in New York, and my boss my first mentor, the COO who hired me, asked me like, so what's the plan? Like, you're moving back home? Like, what are you gonna do? And I told him about the road trip and all these things. And he's like, road trip? What if I have a job for you? I'm like, what do you mean you have a job for me? And he tells me about a restaurant group that he was preparing to be the CEO of. I don't know if you're familiar with the Palm Restaurant Group.
Sure.
So he was being tapped to be the CEO of the Palm to prepare for an exit. And before that, he needed to modernize everything. Change the point of sale, change the inventory, change finance, outsource all these people, really prepare the organization for a transition. And he looks at me and he's like, I want you to do it. And I'm just like, what? I don't know anything. He goes, no, you're going to be great. You're amazing at Myers. You're going to do it. And I'm just like, oh, I don't know. All the millennial anxieties. And he's like, look, you're going to write a second book just from this experience. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll do it. I put my plans to the side, move to DC, start working as a director of strategy. And
How many locations does the Palm have at that point?
24.
Wow.
Nice. Worldwide?
24 plus 2 franchises in Mexico. And yeah, it was like a whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then in my first month, the most unexpected thing happened. Our owner lost $100 million lawsuit against some cousins that was conveniently left out of the sales pitch to me. And my job, being a transformation specialist, quickly went sideways.
Like putting out fires, or just you were kind of out of a job?
No. I was still in the job, but the owner didn't care anymore about tech or transformation. He didn't care. He was just like, he needed money to pay for this lawsuit, and it was just interesting time.
Wow,
very interesting time.
And
so he brought you in, and he was prepared to invest a lot to position the Palm to get into a state of potentially exiting and selling it. But he got hit with this lawsuit judgment. So total 180, can't spend money into the business, and your role changes overnight.
The money was still being spent. I mean, my COO, my mentor, I mean, he was the one managing the owner and his emotions, but we were still doing the transition. We're still doing the technology change, but he didn't care about any of it. He just wanted his reports.
Interesting.
And I mean, I get it. He was very just scarcity, very present focused. Can't think long term. And and this lawsuit had been going on for 8 years. It wasn't like a surprise.
Was he in a pretty precarious? I mean, obviously, I don't want you to give away too much, but I'm just wondering, somebody at that level who has all these restaurants and is, was he in a pretty precarious position before the lawsuit? Like things in a shambles, cash position was weird, or
they write about this in the media. It's no secrets, but basically there was a conflict between other shareholder, like family members, and there was a dispute around like what is the percent that should be paid back to the holding company. That is the trust that's shared, and it was like 0.3% versus the judgment of 3%. And when you spread that out over 40 years, 26 restaurants, many millions of dollars, that adds up really fast. And
but going into it, how was the business? How healthy was the business going into, like, before he knew he was going to have to, pay this judgment? Was the business doing okay? Cash position was good. There was plenty of money,
we were doing fine. I mean, there was some debt that, there was some debt. So a lot of things kind of like added up into, definitely like steakhouses as a whole and fine dining, I think, had been going through a decline over the last couple of years with the rise in fast casual, salad chains like Sweet Greens, Chipotle.
When was this, by the way? When was this where that judgment came down and you're kind of rolling the company?
2018.
Okay, so pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
This whole transformation's happening through 2019. I mean, we were modernizing the menu. We were bringing in new promotion partners. We were actually stabilizing like revenue. We had been losing revenue the last couple of years, but we did stabilize. And but it wasn't enough. I mean, we didn't do it fast enough, and we were basically ordered to sell in bankruptcy.
Oh,
And so I mean, well, the owner declared bankruptcy for timing's sake and all these things, and then the judge was tired of the delays and said, let's sell.
Yeah.
And this is right around the time COVID starts popping up in Wuhan, and it's
Yeah.
I mean, no one has any idea about it in America or whatever, maybe few people do. And in December, my boss pulls me in a room and he's like, listen, you've been amazing. You've been whatever, all the pep talks, and telling me that tomorrow the lawyers are going to be in the room and they're going to come in and you're going to be a big part of this transaction. It's going to be the most important part of my career. And I look at him, I'm like, Jens, you've told me this like 7 different times throughout our friendship. We've known each other for many years. And he's like, you're going to deal with all of these people. I'm like, what about me? Like, what about you? And he ends up getting this amazing job being the president of an airport concession, 300 locations. I mean, he left.
He's gone.
Amazing opportunity. He's gone. And I'm just like in the middle of like hurricane category 9.
Wow.
Here you go. Take over.
Yeah. I mean, there was a
This was in December 2020 at this point?
19.
2019. Okay.
Right before.
Right when Wuhan's hitting.
Yeah, there was a VP of ops who was like the guy actually overseeing the restaurants. There was the VP of finance who was like the cash guy. I was just the systems guy, bringing everything together. And the fastest 2.5 months of my life, due diligence, lawyers, bankers, P&Ls, forecasts, emails at 2 a.m. It was nuts. And
so they sold it?
So we sold it the day before Disney and ESPN and Universal Studios and NBA, before everyone closed the parks and the seasons.
Blessing in disguise, right?
Wow. So it wasn't
6 months later, the price would have been like.
That's what I was gonna say. It wasn't a fire sale. It was just a fire sale.
Like I've been to the Palm in Beverly Hills a couple times over the last 2 years. Ghost town, like not crowded at all.
Crazy.
New owners.
Ugh.
New owners. Landry's bought us, which if you don't know, it's they own Del Frisco's, they own Morton's, they own all the steakhouses, Mastro's. And you can bet they have, for those who don't know, the listeners, they own over 900 restaurants across 90 brands and 6 hotels and casinos. And they definitely have an analytics division, and they definitely have people that are doing all the systems engineering work that everyone said I was a psycho for thinking about all those years. So
did they try to plug you in, or were you done at that point? Did you need a break?
Oh no, they tried. Yeah, no, they tried. Of course they tried. I was a key employee. I knew I had all the relationships with the people. And so I stuck around for a bit, but ultimately I said, I'm not a spreadsheet monkey, and there's more to life. So I said, I'm going to finish the book. And I finished, I published. And when I published, I said, I have no idea what entrepreneurship looks like, but cross-pollination design needs to be in the world. And here we are.
That's cool. That's cool. And so how did you launch your book, I guess? And because you're currently consulting, right? Or are you are you coaching? Are you teaching kind of individuals, or are you consulting with businesses? Or
I am consulting. How I define consulting versus coaching: consulting, it's like doing work for people, versus coaching being like helping people do the work themselves.
Okay, that's good.
Teaching someone how to fish versus, giving them the fish. And yeah, that's what I'm doing now. The book, I basically, there's so many services now, it's amazing to self-publish. You can submit a manuscript to any one of these self-publishing services and they'll just spit out a book. I mean, you have to submit a cover and the bio and the title and the subtitle and all the different elements, but they'll spit out the book and they'll put it on Amazon for you and sell.
Nice.
And I get my $1 per copy sold and that's all right.
I mean, it's really just kind of an entry point, right? You meet somebody on the street, they're interested in what you do, but you're not giving them everything. It's like where you have a book or a website I can, and so you're building a course around that right now too, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the book, if anything, is like my, hey, millennials, hey, Gen Z, like there's a way to create your own path. Read my book. I made my own path.
Yeah.
The book's not showing my philosophies or my strategies on systems building and project management and CRM and we don't. That's too businessy.
Right.
That's the next book. That's the next book.
Right.
Well, tell us about your course. What's your course about and what are the different elements of it?
So I basically created a framework for small businesses called the 6P system. The 6 pillars of any business, of any industry, really. It includes priorities, which is your goal setting, your objectives, your key results, people, your relationships, your CRM, how you keep track of clients, of vendors, of all the different people in your circle, projects, which is your project management, your execution, promotion, which is your marketing, your storytelling, playbooks, your SOPs, your processes, and planning, which is your daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly cycles. So in my course, it's called the Starting with Systems Accelerator. I provide you with my best 30 lessons to get you started with the 6 Ps, with
Yes.
implementing the 6P system. And I also teach you how to use a tool called Notion, which is a really amazing collaboration tool now that's taken the world by fire.
That's cool.
Nice.
And who are your target clients? Are they newer entrepreneurs? What size businesses do they typically have? How many employees when they're coming to you?
So I directly I support people who are making up to $5 million in revenue, top line revenue, until they're at 750, close to nearing 7 figures. I would direct them to take my course and then join my mastermind, because there's a lot of really good materials out there that I put together to help them help themselves in terms of implementing systems.
Yeah.
Usually when they start hitting the $1 million mark, they need customized insights and advice and integrations and actually hands-on work to be done. So between 1 and 3 million, I come in, I actually build the systems that they need, following the same 6P system, the same frameworks, but just customized for their organization. Usually a full-time COO or a director of operations would come in, but they're very expensive, these resources. They're between $150,000 to $250,000. And so by providing it on a fractional basis, I make those services available to people.
That's cool. Yeah, that $1 million threshold is kind of, a lot of people talk about that threshold. It's usually up until then, you have zero clue about what you're doing. You're really trying to struggle to make your first sale, and then once you make your first kind of profitable sale after that, right, then you're working on trying to take it to the next level. I say that, I mean, obviously you can make a few sales, but it's really trying to learn how to sell that product is that first million, right?
Right.
And finding your customer and all that stuff. So there's not a lot, especially as an entrepreneur where you're, the chief cook and bottle washer, you're doing all that stuff. trying to learn what somebody, at the $1 to $10 million range or $1 to $5 million range is completely different,
Yeah. It's I feel like the stuff is the same. Like the external stuff, it's the same. It's delegation, it's documentation, it's automation, it's processes. But I think the internal game is what is the biggest shift.
Yeah.
Like the mindset shifts are the biggest difference between a 1 million and a $5 million business.
It's very interesting.
What about the industry type? Are you dealing with all different types of industries, or is there a certain niche, restaurant, SaaS, other?
It's mainly I'm trying to focus on service-based professional services companies. Those are ones that have margins to invest. SaaS, I mean, venture-backed SaaS startups a lot of the time are in like hyper scarcity mode and won't invest in like fractional consulting.
Mm.
Or maybe I'm just talking to the wrong people. But I mean, I think every business is a technology business nowadays, because I mean, you have to use tech tools to scale. So I wouldn't say there's a particular niche aside from just professional services, service-based tech companies.
Yep. What's interesting about your service is there's a lot of people out there who are like part-time chief financial officers, or they'll come in and be retained to work with a particular business to help grow that business, but they're quite costly. So your offering is much more economical. It's kind of like with what Mark and I do with real estate investments. We offer syndications where we pool investor funds together, so it makes it much more accessible for the investors. Typically our minimum investment is like $50,000, and for that they can become a part owner of a very large property. Like our latest acquisition was a $23 million acquisition. So you can come in with a relatively small amount and get all of the benefits of owning large, commercial multifamily properties. And I think there's some analogy to what you're doing, right? You're providing a service where these people can have a lot of the benefits that they would get if they paid a lot of money to hire one individual consultant. But because of the way you're structuring your program, the price point is lower.
Yeah. Well, my real, sure, I have a course, and that's really just the intro part. But my vision is, I think, so the cost of an operator, the full-time cost of my counterpart is, as I mentioned, between $200 up to $300, $400,000. Famous influencer, his name's Gino Wickman. He's the guy who wrote Traction and created EOS, big inspiration for what I do. He wrote a book and said that there's 4 to 1 visionaries to integrators. There's
in the world,
4 times as many visionary founders that are out there doing the founder thing. And because of that, that's why integrators and operators are very valuable. Also, because of that, there's a huge opportunity to level the, I don't want to say playing field, but train more integrators, give them the skills. If part of what I'm focusing on is creating an operator training academy to give people not just, oh, here's the EOS framework, which is these 10 frameworks, and go implement, but no, actually, this is an entire business systems curriculum, that like a whole philosophy that you can come in and you can actually build these organizations. And so through doing that, I can train Ernesto at 25 years old, fresh out of Deloitte, with these skills, and match him with a visionary founder and say, hey, like, pay Ernesto, I don't know, $120,000, which is like much lower than the high cost of the senior operator. And now more visionaries can tap into this new market of operators. And so that's really what I'm focusing on.
You know, what's interesting is, God, it's interesting you bring that up. So I don't know where it came up, but Google has these, they had, over the last couple of years, they've had these free certifications, right? You could take
The
high level
project
certifications,
management.
all of that stuff. Just
Yeah.
recently, actually, they just came out with a couple more that are on a whole different track, which are along the lines of of these integrator roles, right? Which is very, very, very interesting that you bring that up. And the other thing that I'm reminded of is this whole situation that we had with SVB, right? And I was reading an article. About just these startups, right, who receive VC money or receive angel money, which is smaller, but like large amounts of money. And SVB acted almost as if what a CFO might be doing with money, right? Capital management, and you get into $100 million. The CFO really has to figure out where to kind of put that money away and what to do with it and make sure it's there and all that stuff. And because a lot of these companies were moving so fast, and they didn't necessarily have a full-time CFO, they were offloading the CFO duties onto the bank. And so the bank started doing a lot of that stuff with that money. Not
Wow.
crazy stuff, but they were like, okay, well, we're going to have to buy bonds in order to at least make some money for these guys, things like that. And it's very interesting because banks are supposed to be boring, right? They're not necessarily supposed to be into all of that stuff traditionally. But yeah,
it's a bit of a conflict of interest there for
100%.
SVB to be loaning money and then also saying, oh, we're also going to ask you act as your
100%.
CFO.
I mean, already investment banking is a conflict, right? You know what I mean? But this is a whole different thing.
I was gonna say just the expectation, the inherent story that society already has around startups, and high risk, therefore high reward, therefore investors must do everything that they can to ensure that high reward is there, which might even mean being PITAs, being pain in the asses to their startups, putting pressure,
Interesting.
Like that whole culture is really the thing that is creating the stress for the founder who doesn't have an operator that could share that responsibility with. Then you have all these visionaries that are running around like psychos. And I mean, 90% failure. Like, it's no surprise why small businesses are failing. It's it's not just startups. I mean, the thing is the world, like pressure, like hustle, Miami, Ferraris, returns. You have your syndicates. I don't know what promises you make with your investors, but I'm sure the people you're talking to are like, oh, well, if I'm not getting my 23%, then I'm sorry now, which puts pressure on you to look for the deals that are going to get you that yield. And it's just like this, I don't know if it's hustle culture or if it's just outsized expectations that people have, but these expectations are killing everyone.
It's maybe what is this, 8-9 years of kind of a bull run overall,
something like that,
right?
It'll be interesting to see how it changes, right? I mean,
I
think we're in a recession, but
a significant portion, I mean, we saw a downturn, but a significant portion of the kind of entrepreneurial population, investor population, they really haven't seen a full cycle in a lot of ways. I consider myself a gray hair. I don't have any hair, but do you know what I mean? Because I experienced in a different way, but I experienced, the GFC. Yeah, 2008.
Yeah.
I don't even bring that up really, but because it's been so long, it's like it has kind of, I remember it, but it has kind of faded too. Like, it's been a long bull run, and it's going to be very interesting. And people get used to that, right? Because now you're chasing yield at the tail end of this thing. People were chasing yield in our business into the most unlikely spots, fundamentals out the door. People were chasing yield into small little towns in West Virginia, student housing of all things,
Yeah.
and just to try to extrapolate as much as
Anything.
they could. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, I mean, with AI and this, the FOMO, people marketing now. Oh, if you're not an AI, you're gonna die. You don't sign up for my course and learn how to use AI to protect your business. You're gonna be in the dust. I mean, well, it's whatever. It's all the fear marketing and stuff, but it's crazy
I
how
think that
fast the
I
world is
think that a
going.
lot of I think that a lot of marketers or people have been taught, you know, and they were taught by the internet. And there was a lot of slow adopters to the internet, through the late 90s and early 2000s, but Jeff Bezos was out there, pitching it hard, and he ended up really winning on that. And I think
Yeah,
there's a lot of people now, it's just like, jump on, this is the next best thing, right? This has legs, jump on it, right? And so you see marketers really kind of plugging in, but it's all based on Chat GPT. It's all the same thing. It's just different ways to ask it. People
yeah,
are finding ways to just ask it questions.
yeah,
you know
yeah,
it's not really doing anything.
yeah.
It's limited, in
It's
terms of.
it's kind of in a sense, it's commoditizing the output that's coming out, which sets up, I think, as I'm like kind of talking this through now, it's like, wow, it's like commoditizing our contributions to society, which is why I say, like, okay, the Gen X and the Ys and the Zs that are listening, it's like, no, like, don't commoditize, like, find whatever honey you're making and like find ways to share it, even though everyone's going to tell you you're a psycho. You got to keep doing it, because everyone's just projecting their egos and their insecurities and how they couldn't actually have the balls to do anything about it, but like, do it anyways.
Interesting. Yeah, it's going to take that. So what's your timeline to kind of get we talked about the course. Obviously it's not the main thing, but are you going to kind of lean more into that and do more masterminds and take more of your free time to kind of do the group coaching thing and really make an impact there? Or are you going to still stay on the consulting side?
I'm They say you should focus on one thing at a time. I am definitely not following that at the moment, and I'm fully aware of it. I am doing consulting clients. I am building the intro course. I am building the operator training program that's going to launch this summer.
Mhm.
I can't unsee my own vision of it, and I'm not. Yes, I'm right. It's just me and my business, and I do have an associate working for me in college. And because I have been my own operator, I have slowed myself down because I've been my own operator. So even just this week, I told Hayden, like, hey, yeah, you're in college and you're a third year, and I don't exactly know what this is going to look like, but I know that I need to elevate you as if you were my COO, as if you were my director of operations, keeping track of all the trains and all the projects and everything, so that I can focus and build and speak and enroll and sell and keep doing all the fun things while you be the operator. And it's kind of fun that I'm putting him through the training program as I'm putting it together for myself, because that's ultimately going to make the biggest impact for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you found, not to get off too much on a tangent, but you mentioned EOS and have you found that it can be effective for small teams, 1 and 2 people, or is there really a threshold that it should be? I've heard, the number 10 kind of being,
Yeah,
the minimum,
I, I think I think the process is great. At a high level, I think what EOS does, I mean, you have the vision, teaches you about 3-year goal, the 10-year goal, the 3-year goals, the 1-year goals, the quarterly rocks, the level 10 meeting. Those are really good frameworks to implement. I mean, it's really building traction. And of course, you have Michael Gerber and eMyth, and you have 12-week year, and you have all these different versions of the same thing. the which one isn't going to make a difference. Using any of them is going to make a difference.
Gotcha. That
Like,
makes sense.
Using a tool where you have your tasks in one place, using a tool where you're monitoring your leads and you're like how long it's taking you to close a conversation with someone. Having basic tracking devices is going to make the biggest game changer for you. And that's my attempt with the intro course.
Yeah.
People want to dive deeper, or if there's more complexity in their business, they can join the mastermind and go deeper. But, I think the tools is the biggest opportunity for entrepreneurs and people.
Love it.
That's cool. So tell the audience how they can find your book, and then how they can find out about your courses.
So they can search for Newbie on Amazon. They may have to put Newbie and then Ernesto because the book does not index. There's like a Chinese esports gaming company that floods the SEO of Amazon. It's crazy. And for the course, they can find it on my website, which is just ernestomendowski.com.
Cool.
Have information on the course. I publish a newsletter every week with a different idea about implementing business systems as well. And if anyone wants to chat, you can go to freesystemscall.com, and that just takes you to my booking link.
Great. And then are you active on Twitter or LinkedIn in terms of updating content and throwing stuff out there?
I'm active. I'm active on LinkedIn. I'm not active on Twitter. I'm posting daily on LinkedIn nowadays, which is exciting.
Great. Excellent.
And yeah.
Okay, great.
This has been terrific. Thank you, Ernesto.
Yeah, it's been very interesting and very, very nice. So yeah, and I'm definitely going to check out your course when it comes out. So you'll see me there.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much. And have a good week. Have a good holiday. 10X for Gen XYZ is hosted by Zach Winter and Mark Adair Rios, co-founders of Prosperity CRE, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and building long-term wealth. If you like the podcast, please give us a positive rating and subscribe to be notified about future content. Also, if you'd like to learn more about our approach to real estate investing, you can download a free copy of our real estate investment book, Investing for Cash Flow and Long-Term Wealth, by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thank you, and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes.